Well, even in carrying out your study, and again, that was a 12-week study. Another pillar I noticed that you were addressing, because I think it's important to address, is it was called Nourish on Wheels.
Correct.
Uh, and was this more of like improving accessibility,
It's
uh,
true. Yeah, that's true. Yes.
regardless of income? Because I think that is one of the greatest challenges in our culture is, if we want clean food or organic food, it tends to be those that can afford it or they have access to it. Some people don't even have access.
Well,
Yet,
yeah,
as you
it's
state,
true.
it's everyone's right to have access to these clean foods.
And that is another one, and we do want to take a look at that. Now, the interesting thing is Illinois is adjacent to Iowa, and Iowa is a center of the United States, and it's a very big farming, state. Um, so supply distribution is a big deal. Like, how do we get clean food, organic food to the surrounding, states and to like a community in need versus easy access. And you're right. It is more expensive to buy organic food in America. But if American people and a supply distribution, like if the demand for it was higher, there's a possibility that organic food would cost less than conventional food. It won't stay on the shelf if you're not buying it. So in this design,
Absolutely.
so maybe that formulation is gonna get changed. But in the meantime, it's how do you do it? And so what we did for the Pearl study is we didn't follow a diet. We actually took what we have available. And I think this is an important part of our conversation, Norma, because we debated this for a little bit of time, right? But we're taxpayers, and there is
Mhm.
United States Department of Agriculture, and they are publishing My Plate. We've paid for it in our taxes, so why don't we use what they have was the question. And in science, you have to make one change. So here was our one change. USDA Organic MyPlate. That was
Mhm.
one thing that we did. And as we talked and interacted, we didn't do a don't do strategy. We included a here's how you can do this. And then we introduced them to Costco, right? And we kind of guided them through the aisles. And how can I make this affordable and accessible? They were spending money on already prepared food. So, like the idea of buying individual ingredients and having them be fresh, frozen, organic. It does cost less when you make your own dinner and when you stay home. So we have data. We got over an 80% adherence to organic eating, but it was eating style. It was strategic. A few words: eat clean, drink clean, fiber matters. Let us show you how. We kind of tried to
Right.
make it that it was less strict and less overwhelming. So, and then we hosted Zoom meetings and a private Facebook setting, and they helped each other. Look what I found when I was in the market today, things like that. So, and then classrooms started
Right.
helping and grandparents started helping. It took some talking into, but we have really nice stories about how the community came together. And we thought that was
Right.
significant with making
And
that work.
you made that message practical because I think when you start out with a diet, then they're just going to look at that as this is my 12-week diet. I can't wait to be done with this diet, instead of really looking at, a higher view, a broader view of what's most important and keeping it simple and practical for busy families and in ways that they can eat together and apply it to everyone. And just to be clear, my plate is more of a visual, which I prefer much more than the food guide pyramid, back the old school food guide pyramid. Don't let me get started there. Where you have half of your plate is fruits and vegetables. You have a quarter of your plate might be a grain, a quarter protein, and then you have a little circle for fats. But you have a way to balance different types of foods. But I think that that's the key thing, is the quality of the food, not getting caught up in calories or measuring, but the quality of what you're eating is what matters most. And that is a great message that you're getting across. So when you had these families following this diet for 12 weeks, what did you find in your study? Are there things that you want to share that you especially saw the difference, or differences in their labs that were a bit shocking?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, first part of your question, strategic. They ate more vegetables, green beans.
Mhm.
Their kids like them. Here's what we did. We took the chemical out of their green bean, like that, and we gave them chemical free or less chemical green bean. Same thing, green bean, strawberries in conventional farming, they do get soaked in these chemical farming, insecticide, pesticide kind of thing. So we saw we did with Mosaic Diagnostics, tox burden assays. So there were multiple toxins per participant. And we saw that changing. So from 0 to 12 weeks later, mycotoxins, like I said, that has to do with chemicals that are produced from fungus. And
Mhm.
these levels were really high, right? And when we were watching this coming through, and this was open, like everybody was aware of the testing that we were achieving. I believe that there were 31 out of 36 participants that had severely high levels of ochratoxin A. And that is carcinogenic. That's not good.
Mm.
Not necessarily the farming system. So one is they're getting sprayed with chemical contaminants, and then two, they're getting harvested and they're getting stored, and then the environment of which some of these products, farming products, are getting stored, moist environment, fungus, chemical. And so, it's not like a criticism, it's like we have a problem and how can we
Yes.
fix this? Like, how can we be part of a solution? Because it takes something to feed 340 million people, like that.
Right.
It's also awareness, things like that. So I think those results were remarkable. There were metabolic blood work that we did, that we saw changes in iron and nutrient status. We saw changes in cholesterol, like young people showing up with higher levels of cholesterol and other cardiometabolic, indicators that if we take care of it now, maybe they're not going to have cardiometabolic disorder later on in their life, kind of thing. So that
Right.
was valuable to watch that happen and see that result.
Yes, we don't realize that a lot of these effects of food do start at a very young age, and it's on scene. We don't get a lot of these labs tested in kids, mycotoxins, other toxins, or cholesterol. So we don't know what we don't know. And yes, you make a good point that there is this struggle with mass production and having to stack, especially wheat and oats. And that's why, because of this fear or concern, I should say, of mold growth, they spray it with glyphosate. And that's why all of our wheat and oats are really high in glyphosate, because they're spraying them. So yet we don't want mold. So how can we do things completely differently? Because neither option is working well for us. And those are things we'll need to assess in our world as well.
And it's not
Because
just an American problem. They're reporting that same kind of data, from the Italian. There's an Italian study, and just like walking through the science circles. So how can we get together and cooperate and help each other, in this kind of a design? And by the way, insecticide, pesticide isn't going to kill a chemical that's a mycotoxin, in that way. So it's also being educated in it and being understanding of what the problem statements are. And there was a request for proposals that have come through Health and Human Services, And it was major, 50 million to continue to catch data. Look at the examples that I just gave you. Science is the driver. It's like money talks, this is science talking. So let's just follow the facts. And then you have so many people that are so intelligent. Once you have it in front of you, what do we do about it and how do we handle it? But it's going to take more than the scientists. It's going to take community and community's voice and community participating. I think I really like the idea of when grandma got involved, like people listened to grandma for the record.
Yes.
It's kind of fun. Anyway.
The one with wisdom.
Yeah. But I would be remiss if I didn't say this. We also did nutrigenomic testing. We did it with a functional genomic analysis with Dr. Bob Miller. And again, he personally paid for it because he wanted that testing to be included. Now, we already know, they've already identified the genetics of autism. But what was remarkable in what Dr. Miller provided is so many genes were altered that have the ability to help with anti-inflammation, antioxidation, detoxification. So many genes were altered, and guess what? Their gene expression could be changed. How do you change that? How do you make them help you more? You eat better, you hydrate, you lifestyle better. So there's so much in it that if we do it the right way, you don't have to express with a bloated, inflamed stomach, and things like that. We could cooperate and improve the health outcomes.
Right. And that is the study of epigenetics, that we're born with certain genes, but we have the ability to inform our genes in the way they function, through the way we eat, through providing better nutrients and supporting that function better. And then we already know that when we support the microbiome, that a lot of our gut bacteria also have the ability to influence our genetic expression. So it just can get hit from so many sides. And when we're not eating well, it's like what Ben Lynch would say, he calls it dirty genes, right? When you're just taking in all these toxins and making it harder and harder for your body to function well. Yeah. And just to add, if I could quickly, like the research shows that from, I have to look at my notes, but 1996 to 2016, the NIH reported the use of Roundup increased by 15-fold. And even though glyphosate is a known neurotoxin, causes DNA damage, harms the microbiome, a lot of these studies are done, in a petri dish or on a rat or thing. And that's why your study is so important, is because we're actually now seeing this in humans. Like, look at their blood values, look at how it's affecting their behavior or other outcomes. This is really happening.